Welcome to another Westcott's podcast. I'm delighted today to be joined by Andy Moorman, Chief Executive of Young Devon.
I'm going to wave for those only listening.
I'm hoping we can spend a bit of time today, Andy, just talking a bit more about Young Devon, understand a bit more about the activities of the charity. And I know you've got a big fundraising. I say big in terms of length, in terms of scale of the fundraising.
Discomfort, big in terms of discomfort
taking place later this year. So maybe we can go on to talk a bit about Run Devon in a few minutes' time. But why don't we kick off with a bit of an introduction on you and your background?
Yeah, I really appreciate it. Well, my job at Young Devon is Chief Executive, as you said, and I always joke with my colleague that means at the end of the day, it's my fault when things go wrong. But when things go right, it's about all the people around me. But joking aside, I think the thing about working at an organisation like Young Devon and being able to lead it is I've got 180 colleagues who work all around the county, Plymouth, Devon and Torbay, who do such a phenomenal job every single day in, day out, that kind of makes my job both a privilege and a joy. Yes, it's hard work, but what I get to do is work alongside some of the most passionate people you could ever meet, and enable them to have the impact they do every day on young people's lives. So, yes, my job doesn't involve as much working with young people. It's more about supporting those that do. But actually, everything we do is about the relationships those staff make with young people and the impact they have on their lives, like I say.
And you talk a bit about impact on young people's lives, and I know you've got a base quite close to me in Ivy Bridge. You've also got another site in Newton Abbot, and I think typically people have thought of Young Devon's activities being concentrated in those areas, but actually you work a bit further afield than that as well, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's interesting when we started talking. I know we'll talk about Run Devon in a minute, but when we started talking about the route Run Devon takes and how it passes a number of your sites along the way, and we've got sites along the way as well. You know, we cover the whole of that county of Devon, and we actually have, for example, in our accommodation work, we have 25 houses all across the county where young people live day in, day out. They're supported there 24/7. And we work right from the Isles of Scilly right through to Gloucestershire, because we do work outside of Devon, but that's normally with our partners. But when we're in Devon, we could be working on any day of the week in any part of the county. We've got a youth club down in Sidmouth. We've got offices in Exeter. We've got houses in Ilfracombe and Barnstaple. We've got our outreach young people's work in Plymouth. We've got our victims of crime work, which is supporting a young person wherever they're from in Devon, and that might be going out and meeting them physically, that might be doing some stuff online. But it turns out it's quite a big place, Devon, even before we get into the work we do outside of Devon. So that takes a lot of time and thought and energy in terms of how we support those people best.
And we've heard a bit about challenges that young people have been facing, and the way in which those challenges may well have changed, or certain aspects, challenges increased over recent years, particularly post-pandemic. Have you seen a change in sort of need from young people, or a change in services that you offer?
Oh yeah, I mean it's I don't want to go down a doom well sort of thing with this, but it is incredibly tough at the moment. I think even before the pandemic, what we'd seen in a number of our services, what we'd seen in our accommodation and homelessness prevention services, is they were just getting tougher. Young people were coming to us with more, we use a bit of jargon, more complex needs, but I don't really like that because we're all humans and we're all complicated people at times. I know you are. But we're facing young people with more and more daily challenges, daily issues. And that was even 5 years ago. And we talk a lot and see an awful lot in the press at the moment about the mental health needs of young people. Well, that had been kind of on this upward trajectory, as far as we could see, for at least the past 5 to 10 years. And the number of young people we see who are grappling with things like self-harm, suicide ideation, just in that horrible place where they don't think this world is somewhere they belong. That had been going up before COVID. Since COVID, it's just, use whatever language you like, put a magnifying glass on it, focused on it even more, but it has got more and more challenging. And what we're seeing now I was talking to colleagues who work with young people in education across the Southwest this morning. And what we're seeing now is more and more young people disengaging from education, refusing to go to school, not turning up for exams. So that combination of disengagement, mental health challenges, just wondering where they fit in the world, means that our job is getting harder every day. And certainly in our wellbeing teams, so those who deal with young people with mental health challenges, sadly, every single week at the moment brings a new record. And that new record is the number of young people who are asking us for help. So, yeah, it's not a great story. Equally, daily we see tales of resilience and strength from young people. And when you look at young people and bear in mind the things they've been going through in their daily lives, it's easy to talk about the challenges and the problems. But actually what you see so much is just how strong and how tough some of these young people are. You know, do I think I'd be coping as well as half of them if I'd been homeless, struggling with self-harm, struggling with my mental health? I don't think I would. So there's a lot of strength and hope there as well. But it is, I describe our times at the moment as hugely challenging. And it feels like it's been a bit of a kind of relentless journey since the start of COVID. You know, so people are tired, young people are tired, but staff are tired. You know, you'll talk to organisations, I'm sure, where people are just keeping going and being resilient themselves. But it's tough work out there at the moment.
And I know that over recent years, and certainly since the beginning of the pandemic, Young Devon as a charity has grown, which is great for you and a sort of great sign of the success and the quality of the work you're doing. Certainly a shame in so much as objectives of a charity should be to put themselves out of business because there isn't a need for their services. But are there things that are worth highlighting in terms of where that growth has come? I know you sort of referenced some of the partnership working that you've been doing. Is that sort of an increasing focus in how you can work collaboratively?
Yeah, it is for us, really. I mean, we're a charity without a growth strategy, and some charities and many businesses will have a strategy to grow. We don't. We have a strategy to build relationships, and that has led us to do more. And we are regularly being asked to do more, whether that's more in terms of we've recently opened a couple of new houses to accommodate young asylum-seeking children, or whether that's doing more, as you say, by working in partnership. And we're increasingly coming together with other like-minded youth work organisations and putting on different responses to young people. And we're really passionate about that being local, being part of your local area. And obviously as Young Devon, cut us through the middle and you'll find moor and sand and sea and hopefully a little bit of cider sooner or later. So we're comfortable working in Devon, but what we find is we work alongside smaller local charities as well. So our new hospital in-reach programme, for example, where we've put youth workers on paediatric wards to support young people in hospitals. That's working alongside another 5 Devon-based charities. Our victims of crime work, which spans Devon and Cornwall and the Isles of Scilly, although I still haven't got to go there, which feels distinctly unfair, if I'm honest, that's working alongside 2 or 3 charities in Cornwall and 3 or 4 charities in Devon. So that bringing more people together, you talked about the size of the challenge. And one of those metaphors, might be a metaphor, might be a simile, don't know, showing my ignorance. One of those metaphors I disagree with most is that, that phrase, how do you eat an elephant? Well, you take a bite at a time. I don't agree. How do you eat an elephant? Putting aside, why are you eating an elephant? But how do you eat an elephant? You invite your friends round. Get as many people going as a problem. So as the scale of the challenges we're facing grow, the more it just feels like the right answer to be bringing partners together and saying, we know we'll find a better response or a better solution to this if we work with 3 or 4 partners, and other people have got great ideas and are brilliant at stuff that we're just learning about as Young Devon, and vice versa. So yeah, it all comes down to that relationships thing at the end of the day, I think.
And I think it's interesting if you think like some of the history of the charity. The charity's in a much stronger position now than maybe it would have been a number of years ago. And it's great that you're now in the position that you're the stable partner that's supporting some of those other smaller charities. We can talk about the needs of young people, but actually the conditions for charities operating at the moment are particularly challenging, and a lot of charities I know that are in sort of financial difficulty and are trying to balance their own sustainability against the needs of the groups and the causes they're supporting. So great that Young Devon has found itself in a position that it can be the charity providing that support.
Yeah, and I only laugh because I'm not sure anybody's ever described me as the stable partner before or the stable anything. Yeah, and we came out of a kind of post austerity or austerity version 1, because let's not get into what version 2 might look like shortly, but we came out of austerity version 1 on a knife edge, just like many charities did, those that survived. And we find ourselves now in a position where, yeah, things are still massively challenging, but we're not looking over the brink in the same way we were probably about 8 years ago, I guess, which is a little bit before my time. What I do find at the moment is I'm talking to charity chief execs and leaders all the time, and as part of my day-to-day job. And I think probably about 60% of them have set a deficit budget for this financial year. Which, unless you've got a real clear plan of where you're going to be next year or what your reserves are, or you've got really, a strong grip on what's going to happen with that, that's really risky. Now, we've avoided that this year as a charity, but budget setting is the tightest it's ever been for us. And that is true for every single charity I talk about. And, no different to many businesses. We're not, just because we're a charity doesn't mean we're isolated from all those other economic factors around us, around needing to recompense staff well for what they do, around trying to protect ourselves from utility costs. So, I'm massively indebted to our finance team. And obviously we have amazing auditors for guiding us through that as well as we can.
Okay, so we've talked a bit about the strength of the charity, talked about the growth. And I think it's been really interesting in the last couple of years seeing the Young Devon brand about a little bit more. I think for a long time you'd been quietly going about doing some great work. Was that a sort of conscious decision to be shouting a little bit more about the good work you do?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's a number of things there. One is we were once known as Devon's best kept secret. You don't want to be Devon's best kept secret when you're a charity. It's fine if you're a Michelin starred restaurant and the people who know you, they're going to come and spend the money. But our cooking's not that good. And so you've got to be able to express what you do. But that's just as important for the staff. So when 4 years ago we kind of started on a new, what I slightly boringly sort of refer to as a brand journey, it was all about who we were and our values and our identity, and all of that has been developed over the last 4 years. Now, one of the first things that happened when we did that was not loads of external people came and started talking to us, although that did happen over time. But actually staff started turning around to myself and other senior colleagues and saying, do you know what, I finally feel proud to work for Young Devon because we've got a website I can be proud of and we've got a brand I can be proud of. I'm not embarrassed to send somebody to our website and try and trawl their way through, 1980s version 1 of the internet kind of thing. So it is really important for us. We don't spend as much time or money on it as we should, but we don't have the time or money to spend on it. So we have to invest really wisely. And that's where things like Run Devon are as valuable for us around telling the journey we've been on and telling the story of Young Devon as they are for any income that it brings in as well. But yeah, it's been a conscious and deliberate and long-term process of saying, here's what identity and brand mean to us, and here's how we get ourselves better known.
Okay. So you talked a bit about the journey you've been on,
and
you mentioned Run Devon. Why don't you tell us a bit more about where that idea came from, and then the journey of what Run Devon will look like later this year?
Yeah, so it rhymes, and that helps. Young Devon and Run Devon, and also you can get a sense that we like simple stuff. We're a young people's charity that works in Devon, so Young Devon. We do some running in Devon, so Run Devon. And it started a few years ago, firstly with a couple of colleagues and myself just turning up at local events with Young Devon t-shirts on and Run Devon, a little website saying, give us £20 if you want to, sort of thing. And then it really kicked off after the first lot of lockdowns when Ollie Jackman, who you will know well, and many people in the local business community will know well as well, came to me and he said, Andy, I'm going to run from the northernmost point of Devon to the southernmost point of Devon in 3 days, and I want to do it for young Devon. And I was like, right, took his temperature, referred him to a doctor, did all the medical check things, and then said, brilliant, well, we've got a brand that we can put behind that, an idea. So we immediately came up with kind of the first campaign of Run Devon, and he did. He ran 5 marathons in 3 days across some of the toughest terrain you could want to run across. So that first marathon over Exmoor, that's a beast and a half. And then I ran the last 20 miles with him. And bearing in mind, he'd been running solid for 3 days and was 110 miles in. I couldn't keep up with him for the last 20 miles. And that kind of was the first event. The second year, we invited people to come along and join in, and we ran the Two Moors Way, got lost, had a great time, ended up to our waists in mud and puddles and in Somerset at various points, I'm pretty sure. We got so lost. And raised about £10,000-12,000, and that was great fun. Last year we kind of settled on, finally found a way of making it accessible for more people. So now that starting at Ilfracombe and running down to just over the road from here in Saltram, down Cycle Route 27 means that people can join as they go. Also, and importantly, it's a lot harder to get lost. And it means people can do 9 miles or 15 miles or 25 miles or right up to the full-on 95 miles, which technically speaking is a long way.
It absolutely sounds like a long way. It sounds like it's a great event. I saw some of the information around it and some of the coverage around it last year, and I know a handful of people who were runners, so I know quite how tough it was. But knowing about Young Devon and knowing about the work you do, Westcott's are proud to be headline sponsoring that this year. Really looking forward to getting behind you, to getting behind the charity, and doing all we can to raise the profile of it. So, are you planning on running?
I will be running again, and yeah, I mean, first off, huge thank you to everyone at Westcott's for sponsoring the event and being headline sponsor, because that just gives us the confidence to be able to know we can afford to run it. And then bring people on to raise funds. And behind me is not where many people are when they're running, because I'm so slow. I'm normally right at the back. I will be running again. Last year I did half, so myself and my eldest son kind of did a tag team, and we did half each day. I mean, I say half, I did slightly less than half. He's younger and fitter than me, and he owes me. Come on, let's be honest. So he did a bit more than half. And yeah, it was just a lot of fun. I know a lot of people's idea of running however many miles it's not in the Venn diagram with running 30 odd miles and having fun. Those two circles don't necessarily intersect. But we try and talk about a community of giving, and what we want is people to come along and have a laugh. And I'm not going to name local partners last year who were seen walking the 9 miles with an ice cream rather than doing any running. But that's fine, if that's getting people along and having a bit of a laugh. And for those people who did the 2 days, everybody, we booked out a floor at the Oakhampton Youth Hostel, and had a great evening of beer and pizza, because that's proper running food, I'm told. So it's just a lot of fun.
Great to hear more about how athletes fuel themselves on these events, Andy.
Again, not an athlete, just to be clear. But
I think what you were talking about is how you make it accessible. So really break it down so that actually, if somebody wants to get involved and support, there's a way in which they can support. If that's walking a stint, then that's fine. And for those people that want to spend their weekend running from the length of the county, they can do that too.
Yes, and it's a hell of an achievement to say you have. And, there was one person last year who just set off on day one, and I started at the same time, and literally I'd lost sight of him within the first 20 seconds. And he did the whole lot, 95 miles in something like 10 and a half, 11 hours. So that is full on. Don't even know how he did it, but that's the minority. Most of us are just there, do a bit of running, want to get involved, plod along at our own pace. I tried to keep all the moments that I cried away from the cameras so that it doesn't put other people off.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
What's the goal for this year? You've done it for a couple of years now.
Yeah.
It's growing. What's the kind of great goal for this year that you'll look back on, you think 2023 Run Devon was a real success?
As an organisation, we would love well over 100 runners. We had over 70 last year, so we'd love 100. Our target is 150. In terms of fundraising, we've set ourselves a target of £25,000, and we raised £20,000, give or take, last year. So we're trying to push ourselves and set ourselves new targets. Again, there's no pressure on people. It's not one of those where you've signed up and you've got to raise money. You can just turn up and run. We want to have fun again, and my personal target is being more ready than I was last year, because I was at least a month off of being ready last year and running further than last year. So I think I did 41 miles in total last year over 2 days. I'd love to at least get to that kind of 60 miles. In my wildest dreams, I'd love to do the whole thing, and I feel like I could do day 2, but day 1 is pretty brutal. Am I selling that?
You're not selling day 1. That's I'm not sure you've got a lot of runners on day 1.
Day 1 is great. You will have fun.
Not sure if you can talk people into it with that cider and pizza. I'm not sure if that will be enough to get people to day 1. Yeah. If people want to find out more about Run Devon, or indeed about Young Devon, where can they learn more?
To again, really cunning website addresses, which is youngdevon.org and rundevon.org. So we're really easy to find. Also, if you Google Run Devon or Young Devon, you will find us really easily these days.
That's great. Thanks ever so much for your time, Andy. Thank you for joining us today, and thank you everyone for listening. More information on Young Devon, on Run Devon, and indeed how Westcott's working to support charities and non-profits will be available in the show notes.
And thank you. And again, huge thank you to Westcott's for sponsoring and supporting us this year. Thank you.